Gardens for everyone today. No more excuses. Got no room, got no space, rented land, terrible ground, just a balcony, just a windowsill. Container gardens. We're gonna plant that. I'm gonna show you how. What if you have flooded soil, kind of like we did here? Or you need a garden that's a little bit higher, or poor soil. Raised beds. Wonderful option, super easy to maintain, absolutely beautiful. The Chicken Garden Miracle large scale crop garden to supply a significant amount of a family's food in pretty, a relatively medium size space. This is only 14 by 50, and it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 garden beds full with all the lettuce we can eat right now, cabbage, all the cabbage we'll ever dream of, and plenty of beets. Right next to our raised bed, I like to call it a bulletproof permaculture garden. What if you don't have chickens? We're gonna talk about how to use chickens in a minute, but what if you don't have chickens? How about a bulletproof garden like this? I'm going to talk about how this was established, how it's so easy to maintain. We're going to actually show you how to maintain this. One of the easiest gardens possible. We have our herbs here, but this would be great. You can make this as small as you want or as big as you want, but this is an instant garden for maybe those who don't have chickens. And oh my word, am I excited about this. What if you have chickens and not a lot of space, but you only have a few chickens? You could have a chicken tractor, but you want a garden. Well, how about they work together? How about you don't have chickens over here and garden over here, same spot. Put them here, move them out. Look, the chickens planted this. We're gonna get into this in a minute. But this is a great system for somebody with chickens, somebody who wants the chickens to do the work for them, maybe doesn't have a lot of space, but needs a lot of food. There is a lot of food here. Just yesterday, we harvested breakfast with the spinach, lunch with the lettuce, and supper with the kale. We could have dozens and dozens of meals off this just small 30, I planted in a 36, so 3 foot by 8 foot space. That's a lot of food. I'm gonna show you how to do all this right now. So you have your container. Any old container will work. Plastic holds in the moisture better, terracotta or clay, it kind of wicks moisture, but just make sure it stays watered. They make totes, fabric totes. They're absolutely beautiful and made for this. But anyway, let's get into this. If you guys want to really geek out on each of these things, check out the description. I'm gonna give you the show notes, links to resources, plans, all kinds of stuff. So this is an abbreviated, just get you started, and if you want the super details, check out the description. That's just a banister container. Guys, I could max out this chicken run with banister containers. And, oh my gosh, there's potential right there. That's decorative.
Yes, this is
But that's
decorative.
Nice.
Although now I'm like, kind of wishing I'd planted a cucumber in that, because I like
Yeah, that would be pretty.
But I do like flowers.
Yeah, it's good to have flowers. Look how beautiful and pleasant this is. No wonder you want to get up at 6 in the morning to come out here and work.
I know, it's so nice.
How many do you think I should put in this, the container garden?
I would say 4 if you're just doing the center.
Yep.
If you wanted to maximize production, you could do edge, edge. You could do 4 on either side. So whatever you want.
And that's lettuce.
We have the lettuce.
Okay. We have our container. Get you some organic. Not endorsing this. We just got this local, but this is Daddy Pete's Plant Pleaser.
This is lighter,
Okay.
and the water filters through it better.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit thicker, and it would maybe be boggier.
Could somebody get away with a potting mix?
You can do whatever you want.
This is the thing. Don't get hung up.
Yeah, don't get hung
Just get
up on
something.
like, if you go
If
and
the store clerk says there's something better, then check it out. But
yeah, and do what your budget allows. Do what, if your budget only allows for potting mix and buckets, do that.
just drill holes in the bottom of the bucket so it drains.
Yeah, just do what you can. But this is more like for in-ground gardening.
Yep. It's Perhaps
fine in this.
like this, like our raised bed soil, that's not potting mix. That's like garden soil we bought locally. So I'm taking plant starts that we grew ourselves. If you're container gardening, you probably don't have a lot of space. You could start these yourself in a greenhouse if you want, but you could also just buy plant starts that are ready to go at the grocery store, Home Depot, Lowe's, somewhere like that, a gardening store. So I'm gonna put 4 in here. If you're unsure, I've got some specs below, but just plant and let experience be your teacher. You say, hey, 4 was just perfect. Oh, I could have done more. Oh, I should have done less. Just plant, you're gonna get something. For young starts, you could use something like a Foggett nozzle. See how it sprays? Well, it did spray. I guess the water's not on. Oh, is it kinked?
Yeah, it's kinked. I'll grab it.
Okay, thanks. You could put seeds directly in this, guys, and if you have seeds or young plants, use the Foggett nozzle. It slows it down, makes it a mist. Doesn't wash your stuff away, but you gotta soak it pretty good because there's not a whole lot of water coming out of there. But we water them after the transplant, and then, hey, you're doing container gardens, you might want to water every day. It doesn't rain. Beautiful, guys. Just plant. Don't make things too complicated. That was super easy. That was like 3 steps. Container, soil, okay, 4 steps. Container, soil, plant, and water. Now, for your raised beds, I should have said this in the beginning, for all these gardens, if you can find a place in your yard with at least 6 hours of sun during the growing season, that's called full sun, and that's what vegetables are gonna do absolutely best on. To find that out, you can do a sun calculator. You can just order those on Amazon, or you can just observe. Just go outside and see when the sun hits the place and when it leaves the place, and figure out how many hours that is. First step, build your raised beds. I've got instructions for that down below. These are bulletproof, Big Daddy Hurricane 5 approved, by the way. The next part you want to do is fill this about 10 inches with preferably rotten logs. You could use fresh logs if you want. Why are we using logs? It's an easy filler for this relatively tall bed, and as those logs break down, they warm up. So you actually have a microclimate warmness right there in the soil that helps the plants grow over time. Now, add 20 inches of garden soil. I would suggest asking Mr. Google Pants for garden soil near you. We found ours locally. You're gonna need about 2 cubic yards of garden soil per bed. And yes, it's expensive, but yes, this is extremely productive and more than pays for itself in the dollar bills you're gonna save at the grocery store. Trust me, even with the expense of the cedar raised bed and the soil, you're paying for it in the first year with production in just one grow. Like, look how much is growing in there. The last thing you're gonna do is plant. Oh, I'm here just in time. All right, go for it.
Nice.
These are transplants we grew ourselves, but you could buy these.
Yeah.
That's it. Isn't this a pleasure to work with, this garden soil?
Yes.
It's so easy. There's no weeds in it. You just hoe it with a hand hoe. You don't barely bend over.
Yeah.
This is a good garden for, you know, maybe somebody with disabilities or poor soil or lack of time or energy. This is the garden, right? To make use of even more space, she put at the edge. What would you call this, Rebecca?
Trellis.
Trellis. She grows cucumbers right here. Look. And by the summer, there'll be cucumbers completely growing over this.
And this year, I'm trying tomatoes.
Tomatoes also like cages like this.
Endodermit, I never say it right.
See, it doesn't matter.
The ones that vine are obviously the ones like, so there's a bush and then there's like the more vining one that keeps growing.
Yep.
So I've planted those here. It's an experiment. I saw it somewhere online that somebody did this and I was like, we're gonna try that.
That doesn't cripple her. She doesn't know the technical word for the two different kinds of tomatoes, the climbing one versus the non-climbing one. It doesn't matter. Just
Indeterminate, I think.
just get some. Tomatoes is America's #1, well, they say vegetable, but isn't it a fruit? The debate continues.
I don't care. I love
Anyway,
homegrown.
America loves grow tomatoes. Get you some tomatoes in starts, transplant them, get you a cage. You're done. You're done. I'm probably most excited about this garden because it blends chickens and gardening in a very small space. I mean, look at this. 3 foot by 8 foot, and we've got breakfast, lunch, and supper, and a lot of them. And it was so simple and easy to do. Step number 1, set 3, maybe 4 chickens in my do-it-yourself chicken tractor. Plans down in the description, right there. It's perfect size for a garden bed. It's 40 inches by 8 foot. We end up using 3 feet of it. You got a little edge there. Put it in a place you want to garden. It was right here. Leave it there for 2 weeks. And at the same time you put the chickens there, what do the chickens do? They begin to till. They naturally scratch, which tills it, gets up the grass sod. Guys, this was straight up grass sod. Compact. The chickens are there, you're watering and feeding them in there, and at the same time, day 1, day 2-ish, 3-ish, it's not a perfect world, plant you some seed starts in a greenhouse or otherwise. You don't have to do this, you can skip the planting part and just buy seed starts later, but get your chickens on there, get them working, plant your seeds, leave it for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, move your chickens out. You have your chicken tractor, move them over to start another garden bed. Guys, you could have 9 of these garden beds, and by the time you're done with the 9th, this, even if it's pumpkins, which take a long time to grow, is done. And you can come back, put the chickens on this, they clean up what you haven't gotten. This is free food here, right here for the chickens. And basically, you start over again. So you've moved your chickens out. You have this soil, spread out the manure or anything they've dug out, just level it out with a hard rake, sprinkle food scraps, that's gonna be food for the worms, amend if you're feeling so saucy and you've gotten a soil test, but guys, don't get too caught up in it. We happen to know that we have clay soil and we have acidic soil, so we added a handful of garden lime, we added a handful of gypsum. Gypsum breaks down the clay, a handful of lime breaks down the acidity. Would we have been this successful? Maybe not, but do the best you can. Even if you have to, my garden buddies are gonna freak out. Even if you have to skip that step, it's okay. It really is. Just plant. Next, if you can, this is another bonus step. It's really good. Broad fork. Loosen them, get warmed up. Set the broad fork in. Step, step. Sink, sink, back and forth, back and forth. Balance, 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 down, back, pull, 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 push, whoa, push. This is heavy sod, this is heavy sod. All the better for a good workout. Oh, look. Oh yeah, look at that, okay. Then up. Those tongues get deep down in there. They help aerate and hydrate the soil, which is good for it. It's gonna help your plants grow. If you remember, I mean, half the time I don't remember, and it seems to be just fine, but best practice is to broad fork. Push, whoa, push. After broad forking, put down 4 inches of compost. That's 9 cubic feet. And that's gonna help you, whether you're in sand, whether you're in clay, that's gonna give a nice growing medium, and it's gonna help you no matter really what your soil condition is like. So put down that compost, then put down a weed berry. We like to use DeWitt garden weed berry, or it's non-toxic. In a pinch, you could use cardboard. We've used cardboard in the past, but they do say cardboard, the glue that actually holds the cardboard together, not just on the edges, but the actual cardboard, is toxic. So we've gotten away from that. We hadn't had any problems, but if you absolutely can't afford it, then go for it. So then we have our weed berry up. Then all we did was got some grass clippings. We mowed the lawn. Everybody's got that we have a grass clipper catcher. If you don't, you could just rake it up. And we put our grass clippings down. And then we let it sit for another 2 weeks while our plants in the greenhouse grew. And at that 4-week mark, we came out and transplanted our plant. And if we had chickens, if our chickens were still going, we would have moved the chickens and the whole cycle continues. If you can't get grass clippings, oftentimes you can get wood chips, you can get leaves, any organic thing like that. You want to be careful with straw, because straw has been sprayed unless you've gotten organic straw. That's it, that's planted. And then if you're doing short season crops like this lettuce and spinach, guys, in 6 weeks, you have food. This garden is 6-7 weeks old, and we harvested parts of all 3 of our meals. Our bulletproof instant garden. Say you don't have chickens, what's this? A little bit of scraps there. Okay, so this has been mulched in the past, just like we talked about over there at the instant chicken garden. But this is all weeds. A lot of it has come back. Let's show you how to maintain it, and it will teach you also how to establish it. Remove my barrier. Remove my other barrier. Fancy barrier. Since this garden has already been established, I'm not going to add the food scraps or the amendments or whatever. I could. It wouldn't hurt.
Growing sunflowers there.
But we're growing sunflowers here. But anyway, the thing is, this had been mulched in the past. There's compost here. I don't need to compost it. That mulch has broken down. And so, but there are weeds that have come up, isn't there? A lot of weeds. So we're putting down our weed paper. And notice, I just put it right on top of it. Well, it's gonna block the sun from getting in there to those weeds and kill it. And it's become organic matter and food for our worm friends. There was a plant here that we want to keep that I laid it right on. I'm just gonna do a split in the paper here. I just tore up an opening around this, and sure we're gonna have to weed around it a little bit, but that's not much. There we go. You can throw this into your chickens. That's the benefit of having chickens right next to your garden. Rebecca, you ready for your sunflowers here behind your mailbox?
Awesome.
Your classic decoration.
Fine.
Lastly, but not leastly, the Chicken Garden Miracle Crop Garden. And I'll speak to how to do this without chickens, but if you're serious about growing most of your own family's food, and really not that big of an area. Guys, and by the way, this is our front yard. All this is in our front yard. We're those people. Get the gardens out of the backyard and get them in the front yard. They can be absolutely beautiful there. Anyway, look at all this abundance. I'm going to show you how to do it. This is after the chickens. This is after planting. This is quite mature. That's kind of the end result. Here's midway through it. The chickens weren't here too long ago. We didn't shape these beds too long ago. We got potatoes, onions. The onions need weeding. By the way, we're maintaining this with hose, with shallow tilling. We need to come through. We've done some there. And then this is the stage before it's been covered with silage tarp. The chickens were in there because we had beds built 3-4-ish days. We didn't want to tear up the beds. They manured, they tilled a bit, and we moved them out and covered with silage tarp until we're ready to plant. So first thing you'd want to do is put your chickens in one of these areas. Use Premier One, electric poultry net, a mobile coop like my Chickshaw 2.0. Plans for that down below. And you put them in this area. And they work it for a few days. You move them out. You put down any amendments you need to put out. If you've done soil testing. For us, for this is a 21 foot by 50 foot. That's one 40-50 pound bag of lime. That's one 40-50 pound bag of gypsums, just spread out evenly as we can with our hands. And then we cover it up with this silage tarp at least for 2 weeks. And by the way, guys, your plant starts can be growing, just like in the instant chicken garden, can be growing in the greenhouse. So then cover it up with a tarp for 2 weeks. After that, you can remove the tarp, shape these beds, usually by hand, because the tarp has softened up the soil, and you can do it by hand by doing lines, set a line up all the way across, and shovel from one side of that line with a flat shovel and raise your bed. See how these are raised? 4 inches, I would say. This one's a little bit lower, this one's 4 inches. And you've got raised beds. If you have to, you could use a BCS rotary plow. You could rent one, you could borrow one from a friend, you could hire somebody like we did. We hired a friend to come and help us with the rotary plow. You do it once and you really don't have to do it again. At that 4-week mark, you've moved off the silage tarp, your plant and transplants, not too much smaller than this. We're not too far along in this process. And you're good. Guys, we go off the New Organic Grower, Elliot Coleman spacing guide. Guys, you could just ask Mr. Google Pants for spacing. You can look on the back of your seed pack. Don't get too caught up in that. For planting this garden, you just say, well, how much lettuce do I want? And you think about how much you can plant per foot. And so we knew we could plant 3 per foot. I don't know, this is probably 15-ish feet. And so we knew that would give us that much lettuce, and that's more than enough than what we would need. Okay, how much Swiss chard do we want? And then there, that's how much we ended up planting. Guys, plant 25% more than you think you need, maybe 50, depending on if you have chidlers helping you or not. But count for some of that and some loss, some sharing with the bugs, and you won't be so upset if something happens. So let's just wrap up here with my mantra. Just plant in your front yard. It doesn't have to be shabby. You got it looking great, Rebecca.
Thanks.
The grass between the rockway, the herb garden right here, the sunflowers coming on, the chickens in a nice, tidy, chic looking. Is it chic?
I like it.
Give me a fashion word.
Farmhouse.
Farmhouse, open air concept.
Yeah,
It almost feels like it's not even there, right? So Rebecca's throwing weeds into the chickens, and they're loving it, and they're stirring it into this deep bedding mulch. And this mulch, look, down below is turning into compost. But then we rake this off and we feed our gardens, and our gardens feed our chickens. Okay guys, that was 5 gardening systems. No excuse gardening. You have what you need. Now just go plant. I came about this video because I asked my members in my member area, I said, hey, what are some design questions you have for setting up a homestead? And you know what somebody asked? It wasn't really related to design, but they said, you know, I just want to know how to plant a garden. Touche, touche. So, backing it up a bit, getting back to the basics, this was how you plant a garden. Now if you want the nitty gritty and the links and the plans to the raised beds and the plans to the chicken tractor, I've got that for you down in the description. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I think it's gonna be helpful to thousands upon thousands. There's a new desire, a new urgency to have your own garden, and I think we together can help a lot of people. So I think I'm setting it up so that I'll give you all these extra resources, and all I ask for you is to share this. And you can share it with Facebook or Twitter or email, and then that unlocks all this extra stuff that I want to give you, and it gets the word out. You and I together can really make a big difference, and we can really help a lot of people. Stop worrying so much about the details and getting caught up in analysis paralysis, and just build a garden. We can empower them to do that together. Would you just take a moment and share and unlock these resources for you, and you guys apply them and then share them with the broader world? I really think we can make a big difference together.